Hello, welcome to Tea Leaf English. I'm your host, Thu, and today I've got a special guest. It's Dr. Yadanar. Hi, Yadanar.
Hello, Du. Long time no see.
Long time no see. I hope you've been doing well.
Yeah, I'm good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good too. Thanks. Thank you for coming to the show. So today I'll be asking you a lot about sex education and related topics.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me because I always want to talk about sex education. Sure.
So first, tell me about your work experience and educational background.
So I've been working more broadly on the adolescent and youth empowerment, especially on the adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health and rights for more than 10 years. And I've been focusing lately more on the comprehensive sexuality education. And I started with the faith-based organization, and then I moved to United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA in Myanmar, and then I work with UNFPA in Bangladesh, and then UNFPA in the regional office, Asia Pacific regional office, and work with the countries in the Asia Pacific region, focusing on comprehensive sexuality education and digital sexuality education. So my background is like a medical doctor, and then I did my master's in the Master of Public Health, and then Masters of Health Policy Planning and Financing. This is a brief background about myself, and I am quite passionate about the sexual and reproductive health and rights, especially let me just use CSE for the Comprehensive Sexuality Education, and CSE and DSC Digital Sexuality Education. So I've been running this Nimale Digital Sexuality Education platform for a few years, and I have also developed the repository for CSE. So I compiled really good resources for the CSE for the other professionals or parents or the educators who want to learn more about CSE.
Tell us a bit about what you mean by comprehensive sexuality education and digital sexual education.
So when we hear about the sex education or sexuality education, I think the first word that got attention is sex. Are we going to talk about sex? Is it about how to have sex, different positions? Not at all. And it's not all about sex. When we say comprehensive sexuality education, one, it is comprehensive because it has more than sex. The International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education describe CSC has a component of total 8 component topics. First one is the relationships. And when it talks about relationships, it's about relationship with yourself, relationship with your family, your relative, your neighbors, and your friends, like how to have a healthy relationships. What are the signs of a red flag and healthy relationships? And then the second thing is about the values, cultures, and your rights. What are your values and how your values change throughout your life? Because our value change, right? What we like when we were young, some of the things we carry, but some of the things we change when we change our environment. And also the culture and society has the impact or influence your values. So in the comprehensive sexuality education, we provide the skills and also the knowledge that your values change and culture and tradition influence your values and your rights. But if the cultures and society or social norms, if those things are harmful or violating your rights, then you can identify and you can also challenge. So that's also part of the CSC. Gender and GBV is also part of the CSC. Life skill is part of the CSC. So when we talk about CSC, it is the combination of all the life skills and gender, human rights, and the sexual reproductive health and rights. So packaging everything, it forms the CSC. Yeah. And digital sexuality education is delivering the CSC using the digital platform. So that's quite self-explanatory.
Wow, that sounds quite diverse and not just like you have mentioned, like having sex. How to have sex? Not just
Yeah.
that, but it's more like rounded, maybe becoming a well-rounded person and it involves being in a healthy relationship, like you mentioned. So what led you to focus on comprehensive sexual education and gender education?
Yeah. So it started with reflecting upon my childhood. I think you can also reflect, like we both went to the public school, and we never had a proper sexuality education in school at all. There's one, I remember there's like 45 minutes every week about the life skills. In Burmese, we call Buadra. But most of the time, that 45 minutes were used to deliver the academic subjects because we prioritize academic subjects at school. So like talking about healthy relationship, we didn't know. Talking about effective communication, we didn't know at all, let alone the contraception. No. We learned about reproduction, but more about reproduction of frogs and rabbit and and fish maybe, but not about the comprehensive information about our body, our pubertal changes, our menstruation. We were never taught about that. And then I went to the medical school, and in medical school, they taught about it because you have to learn about the human bodies, but it's really from like scientific way, not really from this is your body. Whatever decision you made about your body, you have to make. Like people cannot force you because this is your right, but we were never taught in medical school. And in 2013, I started working at the Young Women's Christian Association, where I first learned about I have the right to make the decision about my body, my right, my choice. I learned about it, and it really empowered me. And then I learned about the CSC the first time in 2013. And after that, I can't really stop, just contain that information to myself. So I started designing the Young Women's Leadership Institute and Adolescent Safe Space. And since then, I've been like consistently working on the adolescent and youth empowerment, especially the comprehensive sexuality education, because I myself had the first-hand experience how that education can actually transform oneself and empower you in your community, in your life. Yeah, that's my story. And that's why I named my digital platform as Nyamali. My concept is that I become like an older woman. So I want to pass on that knowledge to my little sister, like that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of your page, Nimali. I've been following.
Thank you.
And yeah, so you mentioned about having a Nimali page to start talking about comprehensive sexuality education. What are the then myths and realities about sex education that you try to also demystify?
Yeah. So there are three very common myths that I've experienced whenever I talk about the CSC. The first one I mentioned partially, that every time we mention CSC or even just SE, people think it's all about sex. Always have to start with it's beyond talking about sex. It has the 8 components like relationships, values, cultures and rights, understanding gender, and also especially during the digital age that we live, it also has a component about the gender-based violence, intimate partner violence. What about revenge porn? How about staying safe on the digital platforms? Those are also part of it. And then skills for health and well-being, how to make important decisions in your life. What are the steps that you can take to make a healthy choice or an important decisions in your life as a life skill? How to resist peer pressure, and then human body and development, sexual and reproductive health and sexuality. So the first myth is that it's not all about sex. It is very comprehensive. It equips adolescent and youth with the critical thinking skills and about the gender and human rights, and empower the adolescent and youth to make the decisions that's the best for them. So that's the first myth. And then the second myth that I encounter is teaching about like delivering CSC in school or outside school setting. It will make young people to have sex, or they want to have sex more. It leads to promiscuity. That we always have heard about it. So the researchers have done lots of researches in Asia and also in other parts of the world. And we found out that actually abstinence-only education is just teaching not to have sex. And that doesn't work. We have the firm evidence that abstinence-only education doesn't really work to prevent adolescents not to have sex. But teaching the comprehensive sexuality education results in delayed initiation of sex. So it's like, why? You teach about sex. They think that you teach about sex. Why there's a delayed initiation of sex is because we teach the consequences of sex, right? In the CSC, it's like when you have unprotected sex, there will be unwanted pregnancy, there will be sexually transmitted infection. And if you don't ask for the consent, it's rape. Or if the other person do not give you consent, then it won't lead to healthy relationships. So we teach like all the aspects. Then a person who got the CSC know the consequences, then that person will make a decision to have sex only when they're ready, only when they think or they are sure that they can take the responsibility. Then they won't have sex when they are so young, when they can't take the responsibility. They will delay the initiation of sex when they are sure that they can take the responsibility and they can bear the consequences. So one, it's delay the initiation of sex and reduce the number of sexual partner, reduce sexual encounter, and also the consistent and effective use of condom and contraception, and reduce risk-taking behavior. So this is the myth that the CSC doesn't really lead young people to be promiscuous. It can actually delay the initiation of sex and to become more responsible people. And the third one, it's only for adults. Sex education is not for adolescents. It's not for like young children. It's because they think sex education is only about sex, but we have to teach our 3 years old, 4 years old about their body parts. We have to teach our baby or our young children about what are the touch that they are comfortable with, what are the touch that they are not comfortable with, so that if someone or adults trying to exploit or abuse those young children, they know that they don't want it and they know who to tell if these things happen. So the age-appropriate sex education actually starts when the child is as young as 3 to 4 years old, starting with the comfortable and comfortable touch about the body parts, teaching them about the body parts. Or when they can start helping you around at the house, you can teach them that doing the house chores is not only a girl's responsibility, it's actually everyone, the family members' responsibility. That's also the CSC. It's the gender component of the CSC. So another myth is that it's not only for adults. Age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate sex education can start very young as 3 years old. Another example that we have is that we were never taught about menstruation before menstruation happened. We were taught about menstruation at the time when we have our first period, or even after. After we panic, oh, there's blood from my body, what should I do? Then you were taught about menstruation. The same with the pubertal changes. You were not taught before. You were taught only after you experience it. But wouldn't it be better if we taught our adolescent before they start the puberty, so that they will know what to expect? They will know what's happening to their body, and then there will be less insecurity. They know about their body more, and then they will be more confident adolescents. So these are the 3 myths. So if I have to conclude, one is it's not all about sex. It's beyond sex. It's comprehensive. 2, it doesn't lead to promiscuity. 3, it's not only for adults. The age and developmentally appropriate sex education can start as early as 3 years old.
Wow, yeah. So those myths are relevant, I think, to everybody to understand that these are not, say, like you've mentioned, teaching about sex education will not lead to people having more sex and things like that. Also, you mentioned about teaching your children about, say, whether they're comfortable touching which areas.
Mhm.
Should they feel comfortable or do they feel comfortable? In that case, how can parents talk about these topics with their children?
For parents, especially in Myanmar, talking about sex education is a little bit like ရှက်စရာကြီး, especially with their children. And another thing is we didn't have sex education when we were young. So where do we start? We don't even have an accurate information. So I would point out 3 important steps. One is to parents themselves to learn about the fact-based sex education so that they can pass it on to their children. အဲ့တော့ဘယ်နားမှာရှိမလဲဆိုရင်ဒီကလေးတွေကိုပေါ့နော်ကလေးတွေကို sex education နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးအမေတွေဖေတွေကပြောချင်တယ်ဆိုရင် amaze.org ဆိုတဲ့ website ပေါ့နော် amaze amaze.org ဆိုတဲ့ website မှာဆိုရင်ဒါဒီကလေးအငယ်တွေအတွက်ကိုတော့ cartoon လေးတွေနဲ့ပေါ့နော်ဆို animation 2 မိနစ် 3 မိနစ် cartoon လေးတွေနဲ့ပြီးတော့အခါကျရင်ကိုယ်ကလေးနဲ့ဆွေးနွေးလို့ရတဲ့မိကွန်းလေးတွေပါပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့အမေဖေကအဲ့ကနေစလို့ရတယ်ဒီဗီဒီယိုလေးအရင်ပြပြီးသွားတဲ့အခါကျရင်ဒါကိုဆွေးနွေးရပါပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့အဲ့ဒါဆိုရင်ကိုကလည်းရှင်းပြရတာနည်းနည်းပိုနေသွားတယ်ပေါ့မဟုတ်ရင်ကိုကပဲများသောအားဖြင့်မှာ menstruation တို့ပြပါတော့ changes တွေအရန်ကိုစိပညာဆန်တယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့စကလုံးတွေရှာမြဖြစ်တတ်တယ်ဆိုတော့ဒီဗီဒီယိုလေးအရင်ပြ cartoon လေးနဲ့ရှင်းပြပြီးတော့မှသူသိချင်တဲ့မိကွန်းလေးမေးတာကိုပြန်ဖြေရတဲ့အခါကျရင်ဒါနည်းနည်း barrier တစ်ခုလျော့တယ်ပေါ့နောက်တစ်ခုကသူသိချင်တာမေးတာပေါ့ဆိုတော့တခါတလေကြရင်မိဘတွေရောစမတွေရောဘာပဲလုပ်လဲဆို one way ပဲပေါ့နော် one way ပဲကိုကပဲပြန်မေးရင်မကြိုက်ဘူးအထူးသဖြင့် sexuality education ဖြစ်နေတဲ့အခါကျတော့ပြန်မေးရင်နင်ကဘာလို့သိချင်တာလဲဆိုတဲ့ attitude မျိုးကိုလုပ်လိုက်တဲ့အခါကျရင်ခလေးကသူသိချင်တာတွေကိုမမေးတော့ဘဲနဲ့နော်သူ့ဘာသာသူရှာတော့မယ်ပေါ့သူ့ဘာသာသူရှာမယ်ဆိုဘယ်မှာရှာမလဲဆို internet ကအလွယ်တကူရနေရော internet မှာရှာမယ် internet မှာဆိုရင်လည်းနော် information အမှန်တွေအမှားတွေရောနေတယ်အများကြီးပဲ internet မှာရှာကရိုးရိုး website မဟုတ်ဘဲနဲ့ပေါ်နေမှာပေါ့နော်အပြာကားတွေကြည့်တာကနေကလေးတွေကရှာနိုင်တယ်နော်ကိုကဒါရိုးကျမပြောပြထားလို့ဆိုရင်သူတို့ကဒီလိုပဲလမ်းလုံမှာပဲအဲ့ခါကျရင်သူတို့ဖြင့်အားလုံးသိရတဲ့အတိုင်းအပြာကားတွေဆိုတာကစံနှုန်းအမှားတွေကိုလက်ဆင့်ကမ်းနေတာပေါ့နော်ပို့ပြီးတော့ဒါအမျိုးသားကနေပြီးတော့ dominate ဖြစ်တဲ့အကြမ်းဖက်တဲ့ဟာမျိုးကိုပဲလက်ဆင့်ကမ်းနေရမျိုးများတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မလို့မဟုတ်တဲ့စံနှုန်းတွေကိုပို့ပြီးတော့သင်ယူနိုင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်ကိုကဒါအဲ့လို one way နဲ့ပိတ်ထားမယ်ဆိုရင်နောက်တစ်ခုကဗမာစီနိုင်လဲဆိုရင်အချင်းချင်းပေါ့ peer to peer နေသူတို့သင်ယူတော့မယ်ပေါ့သူတို့သိချင်တဲ့ဟာတွေအဲ့ခါကျရင်လည်းဒါ information မှန်တဲ့ဟာမှားတဲ့ဟာရောနေနိုင်တယ်လို့မျိုး peer pressure ကလည်းပို့ပြီးတော့ကြီးလာမယ်ပေါ့ဆိုတော့မိဘတွေအတွက်အရေးကြီးတာကဘာလဲဆိုရင်ကိုယ်ကလေးနဲ့ကိုယ်နဲ့ communication ဖွင့်ထားပေးဖို့ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့သူသိချင်တာမင်းုံနဲ့မကပဲနဲ့သူတွေ့လာတဲ့ဥမာအဖြစ်သူတကယ်ချင်းကသူ့ကိုနော်အတင်းလောက်ခိုင်းတဲ့အရာတစ်ခုကိုနော်သူစိတ်ထဲကအဆင်မပြေဘူးဆိုရင်ကိုယ့်ကိုအချိန်မရွေးလာပြောလို့ရတယ်ဆိုရဲ communication မျိုးကိုဖွင့်ထားပေးရဲဆိုရင်ဒီဟာဒီနော်ကလေးကကိုယ်နဲ့ open communication ရှိတဲ့အခါကျရင်ဒါပြောရတာပို့ပြီးတော့လွယ်လာလိမ့်မယ်ပေါ့နောက်ဆုံးတစ်ချက်ကကြပါလဲဆို everyday opportunity ကိုအသုံးပြုရပေါ့နော်ကိုကတတ်မှတ်ကြီး formal လို့ကြီးနော်အပတ်စဉ်တောက်ကြနေတိုင်းမှာငါတို့ကဖြစ်ဒီ sex education အကြောင်းပြောကြမယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့လိုမျိုးကြီးမဟုတ်ပဲနဲ့Facebook ကြည့်ရင်းနဲ့နော်အိမ်တွင်းကြမ်းဖက်မှုတွေ့ပြီဆိုရင်အဲ့ဒါလေးကိုပြောရင်းနဲ့နော်အိမ်တွင်းကြမ်းဖက်မှုဆိုတာမလုပ်ရဘူးတယောက်နဲ့တယောက်လေးစားရမယ်နော်သဘောတူညီမှုဒီ consent ဆိုတာအရေးကြီးရဲဆိုရင်လည်းဒါ sex education အကြောင်းပြောလိုက်တာပဲပေါ့နော်အဲ့လိုမျိုးလေးပေါ့ခုနexample ပေးတယ်လို့မျိုးပဲပေါ့နော်အိမ်မှာအလုပ်တွေလုပ်နေရင်လည်းယောက်ျားလေးမိန်းကလေးမခွဲဘဲနဲ့လုပ်ခိုင်းလိုက်တာနော်ဘာကြောင့်မလို့ဒီလိုမျိုးလုပ်ရတာလဲ gender equality ဆိုတာလေးကိုပြောလိုက်တာအဲ့လိုမျိုးလေးကပို့ပြီးတော့ထိရောက်တယ်ပေါ့နော် formal လို့ကြီးသွားတာထက်စားတယ်ဆိုတော့ဒီအချက်ကလေး 3 ချက်ကတော့ဒါမိဘတွေအနေနဲ့ပေါ့နော်ပို့ပြီးတော့ရှော့ရှူကလေးတွေကို sex education ပေးလို့ပို့ပြီးလွယ်စေနိုင်မယ့်နည်းလမ်းတွေဖြစ်ပါတယ်လို့ဆိုအဲ့ website လေးကိုတော့ညွှန်းပါတယ် amaze.org ပါနောက်ပြီးတော့ that story ကနေလည်းထုတ်ထားတဲ့စာအုပ်ရှိပါတယ် that story ကနေပြီးတော့ဒီပြိုပေါ်ဝင်တာနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးထုတ်ထားတဲ့စာအုပ်လည်းရှိပါတယ်ဆိုတော့အဲ့ဒါလေးကိုလည်းတူတူဖတ်တာပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်သူ့အရင်ပေးဖတ်ပြီးတော့ပေါ့နော်ဒါကို informally စကားပြောရပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့လိုမျိုးလုပ်လို့ရပါတယ်လို့
Thank you, Ba. So we have talked about how can parents teach these topics to their children. What about educators then? How can educators approach these topics in their classrooms?
So one thing we've been doing in our education system is having a dedicated subject like life skills subject or the CSE subject in school. But another way we can do is also integrate it in all the subjects. When we're doing the maths, there's going to be a problem about labor division. How can we divide the labor equally in the family? There are 5 dishes to do and there are 5 family members. or 10 dishes to do. That is also incorporating CSC in maths. I think there are many ways that we can do in English also when we're choosing the case study to discuss or choosing the case to present by the students. We can choose the case studies that talk about the gender, human rights, effective communication or consent. So that's also another way that, not only the CSC teacher or educator, but English educator can also promote CSC or the concept of CSC in their teaching. And the important thing is, especially if you are specific subject for CSC, one, the educator must have knowledge and skills, which is scientifically accurate, not just hearsay knowledge. Because as an educator, you are passing on your knowledge and you have a power and your student really believe what you say. So you have a big responsibility, and it's really important that you have scientifically accurate knowledge. And another thing we have to be careful when we become the educator when it comes to CSC is not to impose our values to our student. Like, our values can be different and we have to accept that. We cannot really force a student to believe what we believe in. Because if you bring in your values and your belief into the classroom, what happened, according to my experience, is that you will skip the lessons that don't align with your value. For example, like you're the religious teacher and you believe that adolescent girls or the young women shouldn't use contraception before marriage. Then what will you do if you bring in that value into the classroom is that you will skip the contraception lesson when you're delivering CSC because you don't agree with it, so you will skip it. When you become a CSC educator, you can't really do like that because CSC work when you provide the comprehensive information and you equip your student with the knowledge and skills and belief in them, in their critical thinking, that they will make the best decision for them. You can't always make the decision for your student. It's one thing that the teacher, educator has to be very careful. And the second one is it's essential to create a safe and non-judgmental environment in the classroom or whatever you are during the CSC delivery. Because once they sense that you are judgmental or they sense that you are passing on their information or their question outside of beyond the classroom, then they won't open up or they won't ask question anymore. So it's really important to provide the safe and non-judgmental environment. Another thing is that as most of the educators I have seen, not only in school but also in the NGO world, they still like to do the one-way facilitation. For example, I have seen many facilitator when I was doing the pilot studies, is they ask, do you know what is CSC? And then they won't even wait 5 seconds and give the answer. The point is that for CSC to work, you need to use the student-centered and participatory approach. If you always ask question and provide answer, then they might learn something, but they won't really reflect with what they know already in the environment because the children, the adolescent and young people, they already know a lot. You just have to give them the opportunity to reflect what they know and discuss with them what the CSC said about the things that they already know and if there's any myths that you discuss about them. To sum up, educators must have scientifically accurate knowledge and skills, and educators should not force students to believe what they believe in while delivering these sections. And it is essential to create a safe and non-judgmental environment and to apply the student-centered approach when delivering the CSC.
Thank you. That's very informative. Now, we've talked about parents, we've talked about educators. How about individuals?
So for individuals, if they're really interested, they can also access international technical guidance on sexuality education. It's quite technical. It's more for the professionals working on CSC. But at the individual level, if you want to learn more about healthy relationships, sexual and reproductive health and rights, I would suggest to follow the digital platforms which are delivering scientific and accurate information, including, of course, my digital platform, Yamali, where we've been delivering tips for the healthy relationships and about pubertal changes, about gender-based violence. And also there are many digital platforms run by the creditable organizations in Myanmar. I can pass on some links to put with our conversation, the site that I also follow to access the information. And it's very important because since we're young, we were not really taught about how to have healthy relationship. And in my life, I had unhealthy relationships also. I used to have wrong indicators of love. For example, I used to believe that jealousy is how you show love. When you really think about why am I always jealous, it's either because you have some sort of insecurity, or it's because you don't have an open communication with your partner. So that's why you are always jealous, and you try to justify yourself as love. And in addition, it's the influence of the Myanmar Boka saying that the window are chillo, but in reality, not really. It's a sign of unhealthy relationship. The same with when you want to have a difficult conversation or even an argument, but a healthy argument. I have never heard about what is healthy argument or healthy debate between the couples that you can actually do it. I have learned how to use you statement and I statement. For example, when you are not happy with something, like your partner always leave his clothes on the floor, and you want to communicate about that. Usually, how I used to do was that, why you always do like that? You're so messy. It starts with, "Nimagamu nindalagde." Yeah. So instead of that, put like I statement. So it start with like how you feel เนาะ ဘယ်လိုခံစားရတယ်ပေါ့เนาะ နင်အဲ့လိုမျိုးအိတ်ခမ်းကိုရှုပ်ပွားနေအောင်ထားတဲ့အခါကျတော့ငါအတွက်ကနည်းနည်းဝင်တော့ဝင်ဘူးဖြစ်တယ်เนาะငါကဒီအခန်းလေးရှင်းနေတဲ့အခါကျတော့မှသာစိတ်ကြည်ရယ်เนาะအဲ့ခါကျဘာလဲဆိုရင်သူ့ကိုအရန်အပြစ်တင်တာမျိုးမဟုတ်တော့ဘူးပေါ့เนาะသူ့ကြောင့်မလို့ကိုယ့်အတွက် impact ကเนาะကိုယ့်ရဲ့တကယ် practical impact ကဘယ်လိုဖြစ်နေရဲအဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မလို့ let's find a solution together ပေါ့เนาะဆိုအဲ့လိုမျိုး you statement I statement ပေါ့ you ဆိုပြီးတော့အဖြစ်တွေတင်နေမဲ့အစား I ပေါ့နော်ငါကတော့ဖြင့်ငါ့ပေါ်ဘယ်လို impact ရှိရငါဘယ်လိုခံစားရပါတယ်ဆိုတာလေးနဲ့ပြောလိုက်တဲ့အခါကျရင်သူကလည်းပို့ပြီးတော့ငါကတော့အဲ့ဟာကိုသတိမထားမိပဲပေါ့နော်နင့်အပေါ်မှာအဲ့လိုမျိုး impact ရှိတာကိုသတိမထားမိပဲနဲ့ဒီလိုလုပ်နေတာအဲ့ဟာပြောပြရတဲ့အတွက်ကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်ဆိုရက်ပိုကောင်းတဲ့ communication ဘက်ကိုဦးတည်သွားတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့မဲ့ you statement I statement ကိုမှားသုံးပြီးတော့လေငါပဲလုပ်နေရတာပဲငါပဲတစ်ချိန်လုံးအဲ့ဟာလည်းမဟုတ်သေးဘူးပေါ့နော် so healthy relationship ဆိုတာတော့ကိုယ့်အပေါ်မှာပေါ့နော်ဒါ physically ပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ် mentally ပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ဘယ်လို impact ရှိနေတယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုargue လုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာ solution oriented ပေါ့နော်နှစ်ယောက်တူတူပိုပြီးကောင်းအောင်ဘယ်လိုအဖြေရှာကြမလဲဆိုတဲ့ဘက်ကိုဦးတည်ပြီးတော့ communicate လုပ်တဲ့အခါကျရင်ဒါ relationship တွေကပိုပြီးတော့ကောင်းလာတယ်ပေါ့နော် so individually လဲဒီ healthy relationship ပေါ့ green flag ပေါ့နော် green flag တွေကပါနေလဲနောက်ပြီးတော့ red flag တွေပေါ့နော် red flag တွေကပါနေလဲဆိုရဲဟာတွေကိုသိချင်နေဆိုရင်လဲဒီ social media ကနေတစ်ဆင့်လေ့လာလို့ရပါတယ်လို့
Thanks a lot. So now my last question is then, do you have any tips and advice for people who are interested in becoming a consultant or an advocate for comprehensive sexuality education?
I will just reflect upon my personal experience and share it. For me, the most important thing is the burning passion. Keep it burning. That's what you want to do through the comprehensive sexuality education. What's the change that you want to see in the community through the CSE? And the second thing, and the really important thing, is to have a good technical skills and technical knowledge, because you as an educator, you as a program designer, you as an advocate need to have a sound technical knowledge. If not, you might be delivering not accurate, not fact-based information to many people. It's really important that you have a sound technical knowledge and skills, and for that I would recommend to study the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education, ITGSE. And if you want to explore more, then I will send the repository that I have compiled of all the resources that I find useful in my work, and I will send it through. And the last thing is network with the professionals in the field and volunteer with the relevant organizations, and keep up to date with your knowledge. Just don't stop waiting publication. Now is 2024. Make sure that your knowledge is up to date. Keep your knowledge up to date. So these will be my tips.
If people want to know more about it, they can also follow your page again, Nimale, on Facebook. So thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you also. Yeah, it's really good to reconnect with you and able to find the time that suits both of us. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. I hope to see you soon then.
Yep. Bye-bye.
This is Tea Leaf English, where we brew knowledge, sip inspiration, and connect with a vibrant community of professionals. Happy learning!